Hey guys, it's ShawNshawN here. A lot of you have asked me what this painting behind me is. You're like, Shawn, why do you have this huge Chinese painting in your house? Actually, I painted it. Now, what are these, what did I paint here? Is this just, an abstract painting with a lot of Chinese symbols? Not exactly. So what happened is, if you'll notice, there's, if I can do my finger right, there's actually 8 rows. And if I get out of the way here and go back, you'll see there's 10 columns going across. So 08, so what that means is the Chinese won the Olympics in 2008, and they're very celebratory. So 08 is kind of in Chinese numerology, which they're very auspicious, means the pinnacle of luck. So they thought it was good luck because they won the Olympics. They started the Olympics at 8 o'clock, 8 minutes, 8 seconds, boom, right on the dot. I think they did on August 8th as well to kick it all off, so they would be extremely auspicious. Now, the Olympics did go off really well, for more or less. However, they had a disaster up in the north. They had earthquakes. This area is known for earthquakes. And some of the buildings weren't earthquake prone, and they were using really shoddy materials. Guess what kind of buildings these were? These were school buildings. So the government took bulldozers and bulldozed the site. And when the parents came to say, hey, where's our kids? What happened? What's going on? It's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe your kids ran away. Maybe they were kidnapped. We don't know. We're looking into it. And so they covered it up, basically. And so one artist, Ai Weiwei, he went around and he researched with all the different buildings and which kids were there, and he found out there was 5,000 kids that were killed in this horrible accident that the government tried to cover up in China. And he made a huge display of 5,000 backpack artwork in the UK, which is really important. Put it on the museum. Now, because he did this, obviously China was not happy with Ai Weiwei, which he had been always on the fence for them. So what they did is his brand new studio in Beijing, there's no permits for this. They bulldozed the whole $1 million studio with all the artwork in it. Yep, that's what they did. And they arrested Ai Weiwei and they tortured him for 3 months. So this is kind of the reaction of a brutal autocratic regime. Now, what you might not know also is at the same time, a poet, let me switch hands, by the name of Liu Xiaobo, he put together this document, as you see behind me, with other writers, but he was one of the lead writers. And basically what this is it's 19 phrases, and it's a Bill of Rights. So it's petitioning the government of China to kind of become more democratic. There's a lot of extremes in the government, a lot of corruption, such as these earthquakes, corruption, poisoning of the rivers. All kind of stuff. So he was saying, let's have independence of the Supreme Court, the right to vote on multi-party system. A party cannot control the bureaucracy of the government. So basically saying that the bureaucracy has to be neutral. And he was saying end the dual citizenship relationship. So the peasants, basically the farmers, if they move to the cities, they have no rights of citizenship in the city. So it's crazy. They have to send their kids back to the farm to go to school, back to the farm to work. So they have no right. So they're basically working illegally even in their own country, even though they are Chinese. So he sent this around, and there was 300 people signed this. So let me zoom in here, and you'll see a little really interesting detail. Let's see if we can see it. don't know if it's going to work with this camera or not. But anyway, I've added all the 303 signatures all along here. Let me zoom in. Maybe this will be a little better here. I don't know if that was going to zoom in correctly or not, but so all along this frame, all the way around all edges, I basically let me flip my screen. So on all along the edges, I put all the 303 original signatories. So this is 900 Chinese characters, which I don't write Mandarin, so I'm, it's very hard to write a language you don't write. So it's very difficult. In the front, I've kind of done a lot of detail work. As you can see, each one of these is kind of done in block style. So it's not really the super beautiful cursive writing, but it definitely has. It's very easy to read. And I did have a Chinese friend over here who can read Mandarin, and her mind was totally blown, and you could see it was like really an impactful document that has been put together. And these are the 19 main phrases of the document. There's obviously more detail to it, but this basically describes the basic Bill of Rights, so it's petition of the government. Now, how did the government respond? So up to 10,000 people signed after the original 300, so it was really catching fire in China. And this was just going around manually, social media, so they started to clamp down. They arrest the lead writer, which is Liu Xiaobo. He might have been the solo writer, but I think he was with a group of writers. He came up. He didn't come up with all himself, but they kind of brainstormed together. So the Chinese government, captured this lead guy who'd also been one of the leaders who had backed down the students in Tiananmen Square in '89 and went to jail for that as well. So what did they decide to do? They decided to put Liu Xiaobo in prison for 11 years for this document. So literally for writing 19 words, they imprisoned this guy. And while he was in jail, he catches liver cancer. They don't treat it, and he dies prematurely. Now, he probably would have died of liver cancer anyway, but they could have, maybe let him go early because he's going to die anyway. They didn't do that. They let him die in prison. And when they buried him, they basically buried him like Osama bin Laden. So we buried Osama bin Laden by burning his ashes and throwing him in the ocean, so there's no way to do a pilgrimage to his gravesite. The Chinese thought the same. This guy's right. 19 words. He didn't kill anyone. He helped expose the government killing 5,000 school children. He was the mass criminal in the Chinese Communist Party. So they sent him to prison for 11 years. And then when he dies after liver cancer, they burn his body and throw it out to sea. So they don't allow him to have any kind of pilgrimage site for future use, which is really terrible because the Chinese are supposed to worship their ancestors. I think it's Shintoism, but I'm not sure. I have to look it up. But they do believe in ancestor worship, so they usually have kind of a shrine in their house. So basically they took any possibility of having any of this shrine by having even a little small amount in an urn at their house to just follow traditional Chinese methodology of respecting the dead, which is pretty horrible when you think about it. Now, what you might not know also as well is the current leader, Xi Jinping, probably chopping that up, but anyway, his wife was a military singer back in the day. So she would sing to the army, sing to the navy. So they had these kind of propaganda singers going around. Very pretty lady in her day, but now she's kind of looking older. Anyway, she went to Tiananmen Square after they ran the tanks over the students. Killed at least, several hundred students. We don't know what exactly the count is. Might be as high as 1,000 or more. But he ran over the students, over their bicycles, ran over the students, and this was as they were fleeing, so they didn't allow them to flee. They started up machine guns, and they made machine gun sounds, and people panicked and started running, and then they took the tanks and ran them over. So after all this terrible massacre happened, she went and boosted the spirits of the tank drivers. She got on stage in Tiananmen Square and sung how beautiful the tank drivers were, and they were serving the Chinese people, and what a great thing they had done for the Chinese people, running over Chinese students protesting a bill of, protesting for their rights. For a new type of leadership, and for them to open up more towards democracy, like they had done in the East Bloc, where all the communist governments had collapsed. Now, of course, the Chinese government, to maintain power, they probably did need to crush this. Otherwise, it would have spun out of control, and they probably would have lost power. But as you know, the current president's wife was singing to these, so that gives you kind of a taste of what the type of leadership and what they've done. They've also done atrocities in Tibet, against the Uyghur population in the Northwest is all covered up as well. And people even deny this on the street, which is really sad. Even in the West, you'll have Chinese that came from China, they'll kind of deny it, saying, oh, this is not right, they're just protesting. But actually, they're not even protesting, they're destroying their artwork, they're destroying their culture. One of the Buddhas from the biggest Tibetan temples was destroyed when the communists came to power. All the national treasury was taken from the imperial palace and it now resides in Taiwan, which is probably a good thing, because at the time they probably would have destroyed it all. Now they probably respect it because it would be a great propaganda item as far as having the imperial antiquities there, but at the time it was really extreme. Now, unfortunately, the current Chinese president has decided he wants to be president for life. So he's basically residing back to the Mao times. Now, what happened at the end of Mao? Well, during Mao's reign, he put a long march of progress. So he tried to lead them in the progress no matter what. Led to millions of deaths of their own Chinese servants, starvation. So I don't know if they're going to lead towards starvation, because they're kind of a pseudo-market, socialist, communist regime. However, that is based on huge copyright theft. And, this is just a house of cards waiting to fall. Now, will this current trade war actually cause it? Who's to say? I mean, he has power for life, so he just has to it's really a waiting game. He can wait out 3 years until the next U.S. elections, and then Trump's going to look like an idiot. And may lose power because of a trade war. But even if he's elected, he only has to wait 8 years. So this guy can just patiently wait out Trump, and he just has to sow 8 years of propaganda. So until Trump's gone, and then he's like, whatever, next U.S. leader, they're going to be softer. So basically, I don't think it's going to fall, but you never know. North Korea is coming to the table. But anyway, we'll see how that rolls out. I mean, North Korea has been a very slippery creature. But anyway, this is dedicated to all those people who, all those school kids who died, and also, the rights of the Chinese government for freedom of speech and, freedom of press, all these different rights that we take for granted in the West. Unfortunately, they're suffering because of their own government. But anyway, this is dedicated to them, and that's what it's about. Thanks, guys, for watching.